The strange biology assignment. The Galactic Academy was quiet. The lecture hall glowed with soft blue lights, filled with students from over 50 different planets. Creatures with scales, fur, feathers, and glowing skin sat together on smooth floating chairs. It was biology class, a subject most found boring. But today was different. Professor Rion, a tall creature with 6 eyes and tentacles for fingers, hovered above the platform. His voice echoed calmly. "Today," he announced, "each student will take part in a new assignment, live demonstration of your species' anatomy." Gasps filled the room. A few excited whispers. Some nervous ones, too. "You will stand before your classmates," he continued, "and allow the scanner to show your body structure, bones, muscles, heart, brain, and more." The students looked at each other. Some aliens smiled proudly. Their species had powerful bodies, exotic organs, or strong bones. Others looked uncomfortable. Not everyone liked showing their inner design. Sitting in the back, the only human in the class, Eli Turner, raised his hand slowly. "I'll go first," he said, his voice steady but calm. The class went silent. All eyes turned to Eli. He looked ordinary, pale skin, short brown hair, slim build, no claws, no wings, no armor-like skin, just a human. A lizard-like student whispered, "Is he serious?" A tall insectoid giggled. "What's there to scan? He'll break if we sneeze on him." Even Professor Rian paused for a moment. "Are you sure, human?" Eli nodded. "Yes, Professor." With a motion, the floor in the center opened, and a silver scanning pod rose up. Eli stepped forward and took off his jacket, revealing a plain earth shirt underneath. He stood on the platform, arms at his sides. The scan began. A soft hum filled the hall as blue lights moved over his body. A 3D projection appeared above him, his skeleton, muscles, heart, and brain slowly forming in light. At first, the students didn't react, but then, "Wait," someone muttered. "Look at his muscle fibers." The scan zoomed in on his chest and legs. His muscles weren't flashy, but tightly packed and perfectly balanced. The scanner highlighted red streaks of strength. "His body regulates heat and energy through skin pores," Rion explained, impressed. "No outer shell, but high internal temperature control." Another screen showed his lungs, 2 balloon-like organs breathing rhythmically. "What are those?" a bird-like student asked. "Lungs," the professor said. "They allow him to absorb oxygen from the air. But he's also filtering out carbon dioxide with strange efficiency." "Fascinating." The room grew more curious. Then the scanner showed his heart. A 4-chambered pump beating strong and steady. Each beat moves blood through miles of internal vessels, Rian explained. "And this," he pointed to the brain projection, "is the most curious part." The students leaned forward. Eli's brain glowed with lights, firing small flashes through different regions. Emotion, memory, logic, and survival all working. "At once?" a purple-skinned girl asked. "Yes," Rion replied. "His brain processes love, pain, danger, and problem-solving in the same second." The alien students started whispering among themselves. "His species is more advanced than we thought. I thought they were just emotional creatures. No wonder they survived wars on that toxic planet Earth." Suddenly Syrah, the princess from the royal planet Elther, stood up. She had pale blue skin, glowing white eyes, and wore a golden academy uniform. Her voice was soft but sharp. "I want to ask a question," she said. Professor Rian nodded. "Speak." "What happens when that brain feels anger?" "Or fear?" she asked. The scanner reacted. Eli's body temperature rose slightly. His heart beat faster. The screen lit up again. His muscles tightened. His brain sent warning signals. The entire class froze. Eli was still calm on the outside. But the scan showed something else. He could go from gentle to deadly in seconds. A protective system built into his body, hidden beneath a peaceful look. Professor Rian cleared his throat. "Fascinating, yet unsettling. His kind is complex. Eli finally spoke. We don't start fights, but we end them. A long silence followed. Some students looked nervous, others looked curious, and one, Sira, kept staring at him, not with fear, but with something deeper. Eli stepped down from the scanner, his calm footsteps echoing in the silent lecture hall. Every eye followed him. No one whispered now. The laughter, the teasing, the doubt, it had all vanished like smoke. Even the proud warrior species students who had once called humans weak flesh things now sat stiffly, their expressions unreadable. Something had shifted, something important. Professor Rian floated in the air, still reading data on his glowing tablet. His tentacled hand twitched. Class, I suggest we review what we just witnessed. The human subject's muscle fibers are denser than expected, with extremely flexible joint structures and high-speed nerve reaction, more adaptive than any other species here. A voice from the back interrupted. He's not strong like the Crux. Not fast like the Zynon, so why are we acting like he's special? It was Jexar, a red-skinned alien with thick bone armor across his body. He stood with a proud grin. Show us something impressive, human, or are we just praising good posture now? Eli didn't reply. He just turned and looked at the holographic screen that still showed his brain scan. Lights danced across the image, flashes from different zones, logic, memory, pain, love, fear, anger, all glowing at once. Professor Rian raised a tentacle. We are not praising appearances, Mr. Jexar. The human brain operates in a completely integrated structure. They process violent instincts and compassion side by side. They feel fear and still act. They feel pain and still protect others. That is rare. Sira, seated near the front, slowly stood up again. May I ask a personal question? The room turned to her. She was royalty. Her words carried power, even here in the academy. Professor Rian blinked his 6 eyes. Proceed. Sira walked up to the scanner, her voice soft but serious. Eli, when your heart rate increased, what were you feeling? Eli looked at her. His expression was unreadable. Pressure, not fear, not anger, just the feeling of being surrounded, watched, judged. And you didn't lose control, she noted. I didn't need to, he replied. Sira's eyes glowed faintly. That's what makes you dangerous, the class murmured again. Sira continued. My people suppress emotions to remain balanced. The warrior species train to erase fear. But humans, you live with it. You carry all your emotions. You don't run from them. And yet, you stay in control. The professor added, it's more than control. Humans adapt, they endure. Their strength is not physical, it's their ability to survive through pain. That is evolution. Jexar scoffed again. Then let's test it. Without warning, he fired a low stun bolt from his wrist device toward Eli, a flash of light. The class screamed, but Eli didn't move. The bolt hit his shoulder, and he staggered, but didn't fall. His teeth clenched, his legs held firm. His fingers curled slightly, but his eyes locked onto Jexar like cold steel. Professor Rian shouted, Enough! That was unprovoked. Eli's arm twitched, his muscles flexed from the stun. Then, he lifted it, rolled his shoulder, and said, Are we done with the science project? Jexar took a step back, not from guilt, but from something he hadn't expected. Fear. Eli returned to his seat, but the scanners hadn't stopped. One had kept running in secret, tracking his internal changes during the attack. It now showed something that startled even the professor. The human pain response didn't cause panic, Rian whispered. It focused him. Sira stared at the screen. His body prepares for violence, but his mind chooses peace. It wasn't just anatomy anymore. It was who he was. Later, after class ended, the students left in silence. Some avoided looking at Eli. Others looked at him like a puzzle they couldn't solve. But one figure stayed behind. Sira. She waited until the room emptied, then walked to him. "I've never seen anyone take a stun bolt like that," she said. He smiled slightly. "Earth has worse. You ever try camping near a thunderstorm with no power?" She tilted her head. "You joke even after pain." "We always joke," he replied. "It's part of how we survive." She looked down, then back up at him. "You confuse me, human." "Good," he said softly. "Means you're thinking." Sira hesitated for a moment, then whispered, "I've read about humans. Some of my kind find your species dangerous. Some find it fascinating. And you?" She didn't answer. She simply reached out, placed 2 fingers gently on his chest where the stun bolt had hit, and said, "I want to understand more." Then, she turned and walked away. Eli stood alone in the lecture hall, quiet now. But the mystery of him had only just begun. The next morning, the Galactic Academy halls buzzed with quiet rumors. Eli noticed it the moment he walked in. Whispers followed him, not with hate, but with curiosity, fear, and something stranger: admiration. Aliens who had once ignored him now stepped aside when he passed. Others tried to catch a glimpse of him, as if trying to understand what lay beneath his plain skin and calm face. But Eli didn't stop or stare back. He just walked to class like always. Inside the biology hall, the lights dimmed as Professor Rian floated to the center once again. He cleared his throat with a sharp, mechanical hiss. "Today," he announced, "we continue the anatomical comparisons. We will now move to cross-species differences, however, with strict limitations. No direct contact, no mixed scans, just visual data." Sira stood from her seat without asking. "I would like to volunteer for a comparison with the human," she said confidently. The entire room froze. A few students gasped. "That's not allowed." Someone muttered, "She's royalty." Another whispered, "She can't bond with an outsider." Professor Rian's tentacles paused mid-air. "Sira, such a demonstration would be considered culturally inappropriate." "I don't seek a bond," Sira replied. "I seek understanding. My people rule through knowledge. I wish to compare what we are to what he is." The professor hesitated. "This is highly unusual." Eli looked at her, confused but calm. "It's okay with me." After a tense silence, the professor finally gave a slow nod. "Very well. Controlled comparison only. You may proceed." 2 scanning pads rose from the floor, one for Eli, one for Sira. They stepped onto them, side by side. The room fell, silent as soft blue light washed over their bodies. Slowly, 2 holograms formed above them. Sira's alien structure gleamed in pale violet. Slender bones, glowing organs, 2 hearts, and a neural web that connected her skin to her thoughts. Eli's projection, glowing in red-orange hues, was different. 1 strong heart, dense muscles. Nerve clusters focused around his spine and fists. His brain lit up constantly, flashes like storms in the dark. Professor Rian pointed with a stylus. "Note the differences in organ structure. The Eltharian female has 2 hearts for emotional regulation and energy cycles. The human has 1, but it operates at high pressure, controlling intense emotional surges with pure biological endurance." He zoomed in on their hands. "Now look here. Humans have layered finger bones and rough skin, useful for grip and for fighting," students murmured, staring at the comparison. Then it happened. Sira stepped off her pad and walked toward Eli. The scanner beeped loudly, proximity warning, but she didn't stop. She raised her hand slowly and placed it on Eli's chest, right over his heart. The scanner went silent for 1 second, then flashed a red alert. DNA cross-sync detected genetic compatibility, 97.6%. The room erupted in chaos. "What does that mean? Are they compatible?" "That's impossible! They're different species," Professor Rian shouted. "Sira, step away, now!" But she didn't move. Her hand still rested on Eli's chest, her eyes wide, glowing. Brighter, she wasn't afraid. She was fascinated. "I felt it," she whispered. "The warmth, the rhythm. His body speaks like ours, but deeper, simpler, stronger." Guards entered the hall, alerted by the system. Sira finally stepped back, calm but thoughtful. Eli just stood there confused, surrounded by panic. Rian pointed at him. "The human is to be placed under genetic quarantine until we understand this." Result. Eli raised his hands. "I didn't do anything, I just stood here." "It doesn't matter," a student shouted. "You touched a royal. You're human." But Sira turned sharply to face the crowd. "He did not touch me. I touched him because I wanted to. Because I needed to understand." Her voice echoed. "Then why does the system say you are genetically compatible?" someone demanded. Sira looked down for a moment, then lifted her head, with confidence. "Maybe the system isn't broken. Maybe the universe made a mistake, or maybe it didn't." The class fell silent again. Professor Rian finally spoke. "This incident will be reported to the council. Human Etherian bonding has never been permitted, but it has never been tested," Sira said softly. "Until now." Eli looked at her, unsure what this all meant. But part of him felt something. Not fear, not confusion. A strange warmth, like her hand still rested on his chest. The guards approached him slowly. "You'll need to come with us, human." He didn't resist. But just before leaving the room, he glanced at Sira one more time. She looked back, not with guilt, not with regret, but with curiosity. Something had begun between them, and no one, not even the council, could stop what was coming next. Eli sat alone in the small white room. Cold lights buzzed softly above. 4 walls, 1 chair, a scanner pad under his feet. No windows, no clock, just silence. He had been in quarantine for over 4 hours. No answers, no visitors, no food. His fingers tapped his knee slowly. A habit he picked up on Earth when he was anxious. But this time it wasn't fear he felt. It was confusion. Just yesterday he was a quiet student, ignored in the corners of the Galactic Academy. Today, he was treated like a possible threat. Just because his biology matched with an alien princess. A small beep broke the silence. The door slid open. 2 tall figures entered. An academy guard with silver armor, and behind him, a council member draped in a flowing black robe with gold lining. The counselor had glowing green skin and no eyes, only a smooth face with thin slits for speech. "Human." The voice echoed from the slits, deep and cold. "You are not accused of wrongdoing, yet, but your actions have caused alarm." Eli stood slowly. "I didn't do anything. I just stood there. You allowed direct contact with royal blood. She touched me." The counselor didn't respond for a moment, then turned. "You will remain here until the decision is made." "Decision?" Eli asked. "Whether you stay at the academy or are sent back to Earth." The door closed again. He sat back down. Meanwhile, on the other side of the academy, the halls were burning with noise. Not fire, but words. Rumors spread, like wildfire. The human and the princess are compatible. They touched. He could be a danger. Or maybe a savior. Sira sat in her private chamber, guarded by 2 royal sentries. Her mother, the ambassador of Elthar, stood in front of her, voice sharp with anger. "You humiliated your line, Sira." Sira stayed calm. "I didn't break any rule. There was no law against scientific contact." "You touched him. Willingly." The ambassador hissed. "The system scanned you both. It showed compatibility. Do you know what that means?" "Yes," Sira said quietly. "It means humans are not as distant from us as we thought." Her mother's fists clenched. "No, it means scandal. The Academy Board is already under pressure from the Interplanetary Council. If it's proven that humans can bond with Eltharians, the bloodlines will be questioned. Royal unions will be questioned. Everything will change. Sierra looked up. Maybe it should. Her mother stared at her, stunned. You've spent too much time with lower beings. They are not lower, Sierra whispered. They're just different. Later that night, while the Academy's towers lit up under the stars, a quiet message blinked on Eli's scanner screen. One line. Meet me in the Hall of Silence. Midnight. Alone. He didn't recognize the sender. No name. No seal. But he recognized the word. Silence. It was the place where no devices worked. No recordings. A forgotten wing of the Academy. Quiet. Empty. Hidden. At exactly midnight, Eli walked through the dark corridors, avoiding patrols and cameras. The Hall of Silence stood at the edge of the old sector, its doors covered in dust, lights barely working. Inside, the air was cold, but she was already there, Sierra. She wore a dark cloak, her glowing eyes dimmed to avoid alert. She turned when he entered. You got my message, she said. I don't know if I should be here, Eli replied, stepping closer. You shouldn't, she agreed, but neither should I. They stood there face to face, the silence around them deeper than space. I had to know, Sierra whispered. If it was just the scan or something more. Eli said nothing. She reached out again, slowly, her hand trembling this time, not with fear but something else. Wonder. Her fingers gently touched his again. No alarms, no alerts, just warmth. I've studied hundreds of species, she said, softly. None feel like this. Like what? Real. They stood there for long moments. I didn't mean to cause trouble, Eli finally said. You didn't, she replied. You uncovered a truth, one they don't want to see. Footsteps echoed in the distance. Sierra pulled her hand back, eyes alert. They're watching us both, she said. But they're watching you closer. They fear you now. Because of you, he said with a half smile. She didn't smile back. No, because of what you represent. If a human and an Eltharian can be genetically compatible, the separation of species won't last. Power will shift. Borders will blur. Bloodlines will mix. Is that so terrible? To them, yes. Eli nodded slowly. What happens now? Sierra hesitated. The Academy will put you on trial. They'll make it about safety, about protocol. But what they truly want is to bury the truth. And you? I want the truth out. She handed him a small device. What's this? He asked. A memory core, she whispered. It recorded my readings before they erased them from the system. Eli looked at the device. You trust me? No, she said with a smirk. I believe in you, that's different. Before he could say another word, she vanished into the shadows. Eli was left holding the only proof that could start a war or change the galaxy. Eli sat on the edge of his bunk in the dark cell, staring at the small device in his hand, the memory core Sierra had given him. It was no bigger than a coin, but it pulsed gently with a soft blue light, almost like a heartbeat. Inside this tiny object was the truth, raw, unfiltered data of what really happened between him and Sierra during the scan. The proof they had tried to erase. He turned it over in his fingers again and again, the weight of it far greater than its size. If he used it, everything could change. If he stayed silent, maybe he could go home quietly. Safe. Forgotten. But something had changed in him. He remembered the look in Sierra's eyes, not just curiosity, not fear, not even attraction. It was belief. She believed in him, and that mattered more than anything. That night the guards brought him out again. This time, not to question him but to take him to the main chamber, the trial hall. Word had spread across the academy, even reaching nearby planets. Students, teachers, council members, and even news drones had gathered to watch. Eli was the center of it all. He walked into the circular chamber surrounded by 1,000 eyes. The high seats were filled with alien leaders, glowing symbols above their heads. Sira sat high on the left, dressed in her official robes but her expression tight, unreadable. The lead counselor stood. Eli Turner, the voice echoed. You are here to answer one question. Did you knowingly form a biological link with a member of the Royal Eltharian bloodline? Eli looked up, his voice steady. No. I stood still. She touched me. You are not allowed to touch royalty. I didn't, he repeated. But I didn't run either. Murmurs rippled through the room. The counselor leaned forward. Then explain the compatibility reading. Explain why the system reacted. Eli didn't answer with words. Instead, he raised his hand and placed the memory core on the center podium. It pulsed once, then activated. A floating projection appeared, live footage from the scan with full bio readings. The room fell silent. The footage played out, Sira stepping forward, her hand pressing against Eli's chest. The sudden spike in both heart rates, the cross-genetic pulse. The system's voice declaring genetic compatibility 97.6%. Gasps echoed around the hall. A few stood up in shock. Others leaned forward, stunned. The counselor slammed his staff. Where did you get this? This data was sealed. Eli stayed calm. It wasn't deleted, just buried. She knew they'd cover it up. She gave it to me. Everyone turned to look at Sira. She stood. I gave him the memory core, she said without fear. Because the truth doesn't belong to the council. It belongs to all of us. The room was in chaos now. One general shouted, This violates thousands of years of separation laws. Another counselor growled, Humans are not compatible. This must be an error. But Professor Rion, who had been silent until now, finally spoke. His voice was calm and low. I reviewed the data again, 3 times. It is real. The main counselor's voice grew sharp. Then this is not a scandal. It is a threat. Eli spoke up, louder this time. Why is the truth a threat? I didn't hurt anyone. I didn't force anything. I just existed. And the system reacted. What does that say about your system? That made them pause. Sira walked down slowly from her place above and stood beside him. You fear the future, she said to the council, because it cannot be controlled. You taught us to seek truth, but only when it suits tradition. She turned to the students watching from the balcony. This is not about one human and one Eltharian. It's about what happens next. When we stop dividing knowledge. When we stop fearing what we don't understand. A younger alien stood from the crowd. But if humans can bond with us, what does that make our pure lines? Our identity? Eli looked up at him. It makes you more, not less. Silence. For a long time no one spoke. Then a voice from the shadows. It was the ambassador, Sira's mother. She had entered without announcement. She stared at Eli, her expression unreadable. Then slowly, she walked to the center. I was against this, she said. Furious even. But I watched the data, and I remembered something. Everyone turned toward her. Once, long ago, I studied Earth. I saw their history, their pain, their growth, and I feared them, not because they were violent, but because they endured, because they healed, because they adapted. She looked at her daughter. And now, I understand why you touched him. Then she looked at the council. Let him stay. The chamber was quiet again. Finally, the lead counselor tapped his staff. So be it. The human will remain at the academy for observation. No punishment will be given. But this matter is not closed. Eli felt the tension release from his chest. Sira gave him a small smile. As they left the chamber together, she whispered, You didn't just survive today. You changed it. Eli looked up at the stars through the ceiling dome. No, he said. We did. The Galactic Academy had changed. The moment Eli stepped out of the trial hall, he felt it in the air, Not fear, not anger, but uncertainty. Students no longer looked past him. Now they stared directly into his face as if trying to understand what made him different. Some stared with respect, others with unease, but all with curiosity. He walked through the wide glass corridor, stars swirling outside like rivers of light. Drones buzzed overhead, capturing images of the human boy who survived trial. His image had already spread across dozens of planets. Not as a criminal, not as a threat, but as a question the galaxy couldn't answer. Was humanity still primitive? Or was it something more? In the central square, dozens of students were gathered. Arguments broke out. Some defended Eli. Others called it a trick, a biological glitch, something that should have never happened. Two large species almost came to blows before Academy guards separated them. Professor Rian stood at the center, his voice calm and powerful. This is not a place for violence. We are scholars. We seek answers, not war. He turned toward Eli, who had just arrived at the edge of the crowd. Come, Rian said. It's time we let the Academy hear from you. A floating platform rose from the ground, and Eli stepped onto it. Thousands of students, teachers, and visiting leaders now stood before him. Cameras hovered. Sierra stood to one side, her white eyes locked on his. Eli took a breath. My name is Eli Turner, he began, voice strong despite the pressure. I didn't come here to start a rebellion. I came here to study, like all of you. I came to learn. He paused, then added, but I didn't expect the biggest lesson to be about myself. Silence. No one interrupted. I know some of you still don't trust me. Some think I don't belong here, that I'm a threat just because my body responded to another species in a way yours didn't expect. I understand. It surprised me too. He looked around slowly. But let me ask something. If truth makes you uncomfortable, is the problem with the truth or with your comfort? A few heads nodded. Others frowned. We fear change. That's natural. But pretending something didn't happen just because it breaks an old rule? That's not science, that's fear. And if this academy stands for knowledge, then we must go where the facts lead, even if it leads us into places we've never been. A Tao. Voice shouted from the crowd. You could destroy traditions that are thousands of years old. Eli nodded. Maybe. Or maybe those traditions were waiting for something new to grow beside them. Another voice. You think humans are special? He shook his head. No. I think every species is special. But I also think that when two beings from different worlds can connect, not by force, not by rule, but by choice, that's not weakness. That's hope. His words hung in the air. Then Sierra stepped forward, her voice clear. I chose to touch him. I knew what might happen, but I didn't do it out of rebellion or carelessness. I did it because I saw something I couldn't explain, and now that I have, I won't pretend it didn't matter. She stood beside him, calm and unafraid. You say we risk everything by accepting what happened, she continued, but I say we risk more by pretending it didn't. From the side of the crowd, the ambassador watched her daughter speak with a quiet, proud gaze. Then finally, the head of the academy, an ancient blue-skinned being named Chancellor Vorn, rose from his crystal throne. His voice was deep and slow, filled with gravity. This academy has stood for 5,000 years. We have seen wars, peace, lies, truth, and now we face something new, the proof that our divisions may no longer be natural. He looked at Eli. And Sierra, you have not broken the academy. You have awakened it. He turned to the crowd. From this day forward, let the academy welcome truth wherever it's found. Let us create a new branch of study, cross-species connection and evolution. Gasps rippled through the audience. A new department, because of a human. And let Eli Turner be its first student, the chancellor added. The square exploded with noise. Some cheered. Some stood in shocked silence. A few walked away, unable to accept it. But most stayed. Eli stepped down from the platform. As he walked past the crowd, students stepped aside, not out of fear, but out of respect. Sierra walked beside him, her voice low. You just made history. He gave a small smile. Funny, I just wanted to pass biology. She laughed, a soft, musical sound. Well, now you're the living example. They stopped at the academy fountain where the stars reflected in the water. She looked at him. So what happens now? He looked up. We study. We grow. We prove that just because we're different doesn't mean we can't belong. The days that followed were unlike anything the Galactic Academy had ever seen. It started quietly, just a few curious students showing up to the new cross-species connection lab. Then, one by one, more came. Eltharians, Crocs, Zynon, even the proud Talzir who once mocked Eli, all now eager to understand what had once been ignored. The human connection. Eli became something of a symbol, not of rebellion or superiority, but of possibility. Where others saw rules, he had shown a path, and where many feared change, he had stood calm, offering nothing but honesty. But not everyone had accepted the shift. There were still whispers, still cold looks from certain corners, but they were growing fewer. The galaxy, it seemed, was ready to listen. One evening, the academy lights dimmed as a rare event was announced. The chancellor himself had summoned every student, professor, and visitor to the grand forum. No one knew why. The floating platforms hummed as beings from every known species gathered under the starlit dome. The air crackled with quiet anticipation. Eli stood backstage with Professor Rian and Sierra. He had changed over the weeks, not in appearance, but in presence. His steps were steadier, his words more thoughtful, but deep inside, he was still the same boy from Earth who had once just wanted to pass a class. Sierra leaned toward him, her eyes glowing softly. You're nervous, she said. Always, he replied with a grin. But you already knew that. I did, she smiled. But I also know you'll do fine. Chancellor Vorn stepped into the light. His voice boomed through the chamber. Today we stand not to judge, not to debate, but to honor truth. Truth that came not from the council, not from history, but from an unexpected place. He paused, letting the silence settle. A student, a human, a stranger to our galaxy. Yet one who reminded us of something very old, the power of choice, of respect, of understanding. He gestured toward the entrance. Eli Turner, please come forward. The crowd quieted as Eli stepped into the center. All eyes were on him again, but this time they were different. Curious, yes, but open. He took a breath and spoke. I came here as a visitor. Now I stand as a student. But what I truly learned was this. Connection doesn't begin with science, it begins with listening. He turned slightly, locking eyes with Sierra, who stood behind the crowd. And sometimes, with trust. He pulled something from his jacket. A small metallic pin, engraved with the crest of Earth. Then he held up a second one, the glowing mark of the Galactic Academy. I ask permission, he said clearly, to wear both. Not because I'm better, not because I'm special, but because I'm both, human and part of this place now. The Chancellor nodded slowly. Permission granted. The crowd applauded, not wildly, but with quiet, strong unity. Then something unexpected happened. Sierra walked to the center. She stood beside Eli, eyes steady. As daughter of the Eltharian High Line, I have the right to speak in open ceremony, the Dai. Chancellor allowed it with a wave of his hand. Sierra turned to the crowd. For generations, my people believed strength came from purity, from keeping our line separate. But I learned something else. Strength also comes from the courage to change. She looked at Eli. And so I make my declaration. Not for politics, not for tradition, but for truth. The room hushed. I declare that Eli Turner has earned not only the Academy's respect, but mine, as a student, as a partner in knowledge, and more. Gasps echoed. Eli blinked. Sierra stepped closer. I choose to study with him, to learn from him, and if the stars will it, to walk with him in the years to come. There were no words for a moment, just silence, deep and powerful. Then the Chancellor rose again. Let the declaration be recorded. Let it be known across the systems. This is no longer the age of isolation. It is the age of understanding. Applause broke through like thunder. From every side, some even stood. Others wept. The galaxy had watched history change, and they had chosen to cheer. Later that night, Eli and Sierra stood outside beneath the twin moons. The wind was soft, carrying scents from a dozen alien trees. You didn't have to say that, Eli said. I wanted to, she replied. You didn't ask. That's what made it real. He looked up at the stars. Do you think we really changed anything? She smiled. You didn't just change them. You changed me. He turned toward her, and for once the galaxy didn't feel so big. It didn't feel so cold. It felt like home.